The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi folks, welcome to the 49th presentation hosted by AlmonTravel, CARP, and tonight CroisiEurope Cruise Line, held every Tuesday at 6:30 at Atlantic time. As in the past, this presentation is being recorded and will be on the CARP Travel website shortly after. A little bit about us at AlmonTravel. We've been in business for almost 19 years this coming May. We have, as most travel agencies do, some particular specialties. One of them, as this presentation tonight indicates, is river cruises. We've done 10 itineraries around the world, including 3 in Asia. In Vietnam, 2 itineraries, the Mekong with Cambodia, with the temples of Angkor Wat, as well as the Red River in the north of Vietnam. Cruise tours on the Yangtze in China, the Nile in Egypt, as well as the Rhine and the Danube and the Rhone in southern France, the Po River in Italy, and Portugal's Douro River in Europe, the Mississippi on an old-fashioned paddle wheeler in the United States, which was quite a neat experience. We also do coach tours, from local tours like a tour of Newfoundland and Labrador to coach tours around the world. We have relationships with a variety of touring companies to find the best options for you. We also do destination weddings. We've done 130 destination weddings from across Canada down to the Caribbean area. And where that translates into our demographic is if you have any important anniversaries coming up, retirements, or special occasions, you certainly can help you book a group with family and friends to go down to the Caribbean area. Also, obviously, because of our experience with destination weddings and a lot of the visitations that we've had down there, we can book Caribbean area vacations, adult only or family vacations, can recommend the best resorts for those. Extended family Florida trips, we focus on theme park vacations like Universal Studios, Disney, SeaWorld, and Busch Gardens, and we've been to all of them several times. You need a travel agent to help you around these massive theme parks or you'll be wasting a lot of time. Ocean cruises, we've done the most popular itineraries, Hawaii, the Mediterranean, the 3 Caribbean itineraries, the UK, New Zealand, Australia, and also on most people's bucket list, cruise in Alaska. Folks, the glaciers are melting at a very rapid pace. If that's on your bucket list, you may want to move it closer to the top. Travel conditions. Omicron still holds sway over travel, a version of COVID that seems for most, especially vaccinated people, not to be as serious in its effects than earlier versions of COVID. However, the government of Canada is taking it seriously as previous versions, so getting out of and back into Canada has its concerns. Federal and provincial governments seem to be aware of this so-called less harmful variant, and quarantine times and testing times are affected by having their timelines reduced. Are we heading towards COVID being recognized as similar to what we would call normal flu pre-COVID? It seems like it, if no new variant comes along. But if so, look out, world, as so many are ravenously waiting to get on the road again. One very good sign that travel is starting to return to normal is the fact that more and more travel insurance companies are offering during trip COVID coverage. You can't cancel due to COVID, but if you're double vaccinated and contract the disease and need to quarantine at destination, many of your costs to do so will be covered. This quarantine insurance is a very good value and can be added to any policy you may now have as a standalone policy. Contact me for more information. So AlmonTravel's relationship with CARP Nova Scotia goes back, probably about 7 or 8 years ago. I came into contact with COO and Chief Policy Officer for CARP National, Bill Van Gorder. He's also the founding chair for CARP Nova Scotia, in addition to being senior spokesperson for CARP in the Maritimes. Bill, along with another gentleman, created a foundation for raising money for local charitable institutions called 100 Men Who Give a Damn. I was on the board of that program. Over 3.5 to 4 years, we raised $400,000 for local charities, all of which went to the charities. There was no overhead. Being on the board, I got to know Bill quite well, and in fact, he got me to book several trips for him. One, a scenic river cruise in Europe, and the other via rail trip across Canada, culminated with the Rocky Mountaineer through the Rockies. So as a result of his experience with our helping him book these trips, he asked if we'd be interested in being the official travel agency for CARP Nova Scotia. And I said yes, of course. I'd like to introduce Mike DaCosta, the General Manager, North America for CroisiEurope, and Laura Murphy, the Regional Sales Manager, East for CroisiEurope, who's going to be working in the background on this presentation. Mike is going to be introducing us to this relatively unknown in Canada river cruise company. They'll be telling us, in addition to the many destinations they cruise in, about river cruising in the Loire Valley. They'll also introduce us to another form of river cruising, barge cruising, which is gaining in popularity. Finally, they'll give us a view of the African river cruise product, something we ourselves have some experience with, and a cruise that ought to be high on everyone's bucket list. Mike, please take over.
Thanks, Danny. Danny, thanks for having us. Again, my name is Mike DaCosta. I'm the general manager here for CroisiEurope in the United States and Canada. I want to talk a bit about CroisiEurope, specifically who we are and kind of what sets us apart from the other river cruise lines, as well as other small ship cruise lines that you may have experienced or you may have heard of before. And also to kind of touch on what customer is right for a CroisiEurope cruise. CroisiEurope is a French family-owned river cruise line. We are based in Strasbourg, France, and we are a bilingual river cruise line. So all of our cruises, whether they take place in France or somewhere else, will be French and English. We are the largest river cruise line in Europe and the second biggest river cruise line out there, second only to the behemoth in the river cruise industry, who I'm sure you've heard of. We have 45 years of industry experience. The Schmitter family, who owns the company, started with Rhine River Cruises 45 years ago. Since then, we've expanded across Europe and across the world. And the family is now in the third generation of owners who are still running the company today. We have 55 ships now cruising all around the world, with the majority of them being European river cruises. We're known for unique ships, unique types of vessels, and vessels that are really built with the river that they operate on in mind. We have a worldwide client base. Beyond France, we have a large contingency of Germans on board. We have Brits, we have Scandinavians, Australians, Americans, Canadians, and so it adds up to a truly international experience while on board the river ship. We still have that French flair from our founding, so the cuisine on board has a real French touch to it. We have really refined French service, and so you'll have an experience that's both local, both local, international, and French as well. And last is that we offer more variety than anyone else, and I can say that with a strong period on the end of the sentence. We are always looking for someplace new to take our customers. We are always looking for new customers to kind of come on board and become part of our family. And to accomplish that, we're always expanding really what can a river cruise be and what can a small ship cruise do. When I talk about unique river cruises, I want to give you an example of some of the custom ship builds that we've done. The MS Belle de l'Adriatique is our ocean cruise ship. It holds just 200 passengers, and it really operates in the same way that a river cruise would operate. Different ports each day, all inclusive on board, with tours in each of the different cities that it visits. It was built to operate in the Adriatic Sea, and it still operates along the Croatian coast for most of the season. Right now, you can find it in the Red Sea, doing Egypt and Jordan. And it'll also cruise, relocating cruises through the Suez Canal, through the Greek Isles, and around the Adriatic Sea. The MS Janine is a French canal cruise, which I'll talk about a bit more later. These are 11 cabin vessels. They're built to travel on the canals that are all over the country of France. A really intimate kind of experience, and something that is that you won't find on the other river cruise lines. The MS Elbe Princess, which is one of our modern paddle wheel ships. You'll see it's nothing like the Mississippi River cruises that you may think of when you hear of the word paddle wheel. Built with the Elbe River in mind, the ship has just a draft of 1 meter, and so it can navigate really shallow rivers. We have a second ship on the Elbe, which is the Elbe Princess II, which is the same type of design. And the same shipyard that built this also built the Loire Princess, which I'll talk about later, to operate on the Loire River. And the MV African Dream. This is a 16-passenger ship, and while not a river cruise, it operates on Lake Kariba in Zimbabwe. Again, it was a ship designed and built for safari cruising in mind, and again, to branch away from what we would call traditional river cruises. Exclusive destinations. CroisiEurope, it has been a pioneer in destinations in river cruising from the very beginning. Again, beginning with dinner cruises and eventually overnight cruises on the Rhine, but then branching out to other rivers in France and other rivers in Europe. We were the first with a river cruise operating in Bordeaux, and we do have some company there now. But with CroisiEurope, it's a really French experience in France. You'll be able to go and taste the Bordeaux wines, taste the food that makes this region unique, and travel on board the MS Cyrano de Bergerac, which is our ship there. In southern Spain, we have a river cruise on the Guadalquivir River. It's operating round trip out of Seville. It cruises up and down on the Guadalquivir and out into the Gulf of Cadiz. So it actually operates partly as a coastal ship as well, and even touches the Algarve in Portugal for a few days. This is a totally exclusive destination for us, so you could not do this cruise with anyone else. In France's Loire Valley, we have a 6-day cruise on the Loire Princess. It does come with an extra night in Paris at the start, and I'll talk a bit more about that later, so I'll leave it there. Again, on the Elbe and the rivers that kind of branch off of it, we do a cruise from Berlin north up to Stralsund. We do stops in Poland, and then we take people across the North Sea and do a day in Copenhagen as well. So a really unique kind of itinerary that nobody else is offering. Prague and Bohemia, one of the Elbe Princess ships that I spoke about on that last slide, will be operating a round-trip Prague program, which will be 6 nights, up and down on the Vltava River. So this is really all Czech Republic on the cruise. We do a day trip to Dresden, Germany as well. But this is something that's brand new for us in 2022 and something that nobody else does. And finally, Venice to Mantua. We have the MS Michelangelo is our ship which operates in Venice. It's been doing more or less the Venetian Lagoon for the last few years, which will be docking downtown Venice, but cruising around the Venetian Lagoon, stopping at the different islands each day. We have just recently created a program that cruises on Italy's Canal Bianco, which is a canal that operates parallel to the Po River. And it's the only really true type of river cruise available in Italy at this time, covering the Veneto and Emilia-Romagna, so 2 really great regions of Italy, and something that we're really excited to share with people. And the last thing that really sets us apart is our variety of programs. We have all the 7-night and up river cruises that any other river cruise lines offer, especially on the Rhine River, the Danube River, the Seine in Paris, the Rhone in the south of France. But we offer a lot of types of itineraries that really nobody else does, and itineraries that might be for people who wouldn't take a river cruise as their first choice. We have short cruises, which begin at as little as 3 nights on board in many destinations. Really great if you're really just looking to try out river cruising, if you're a first-time river cruiser, or even your first time in Europe and you want to have you want to have an experience that's really truly European, you can come with us, for example, on the Rhine River to do the castles along the Rhine for about 3 or 4 nights, and then join an escorted tour for the rest of the trip. Have your travel agent plan your pre and post from there. Again, really great for pairing with land programs, but still being able to take that cruise portion. And good for budget travelers as well. We have cruises that start as low as about 1,500 Canadian for about a half of a week on board. We're a really great value brand for that reason, and I think we have cruises that start at all sorts of price points, and so it's really something for everybody with CroisiEurope. And then theme cruises, which we have many of. Wine-themed cruises, which are very popular with us in France. Every cruise has wine aspects to them, but we have specific cruises during the harvest season. So in the Alsace, they're famous for their white wines, and we do cruises there in the fall, focusing on that. Down in Burgundy during the Beaujolais Nouveau Festival, we're doing cruises that are specific for that. So wine enthusiasts, I think, will always have a great time cruising with us, but there's some specific cruises that you can look out for. Gastronomy cruises that operate out of Lyon. Provence, Burgundy and Provence are like the culinary capitals of France, which is like the culinary capital of Europe. And we have some really specific cruises that are kind of taking a deeper dive into that gastronomy, visiting some restaurants off the ship and doing dining experiences in some of the restaurants of Paul Bocuse. So something for somebody who's looking for that extra dive into French gastronomy. Hiking cruises. I have the Douro Valley here as an example, which is in the north of Portugal, but we do hiking cruises also on the Rhine, off of the Seine River, and all across Europe, really. Great for kind of more active travelers. These rivers are always traveling through really scenic destinations. There tends to be hillsides on either side of the river that are really great to pop off and hike up into. So you're usually doing half-day hikes, coming back to the ship for a warm shower and a nice meal at the end of the day. Cycling programs as well for small groups starting at about 8 passengers. We offer cycling on just about all of our European cruises. You can add it on to any scheduled departure, or in the case of our canal barges, you can actually charter the whole ship. And if you have 8 or more of you wanting to do cycling, we can have private guides who take you off the ship to kind of explore the countryside by bike. And finally, family cruises. I think that this is river cruising is really something that can be great for the whole family, especially families that want to experience Europe in a really unique way. So CroisiEurope always welcomes kids on board and families on board, but in the summer months we have family cruises that are themed towards these types of families. We've got discounts. Kids travel free on many of them. We have weighted single supplements for families of odd numbers, and we're really trying to encourage that type of travel during the summer months. And finally, there I have over 200 plus itineraries and counting, and that's a fact. We have just hundreds of itineraries, and every year we're introducing new programs, new tours, new ships, and new things to kind of keep our customers coming back, and to introduce river cruising to new people as well. So from there, I want to talk about some of our specific programs and do a little bit more of a deep dive. I know Danny mentioned our canal barges, and this is something that we're really proud of and we really like to share with people. And it's also a product that's become very popular, especially during the past few years. Our canal boats are 22 passenger vessels. They have 11 cabins, which usually are all on the main deck. And they each operate in different regions of France. We have a ship that is based in Paris and cruises out to Champagne. We have 2 ships in Burgundy doing Dijon to Saint-Léger or to Besançon. We have a ship based in Strasbourg, which is doing the French Alsace. We have one in the center of France on the Upper Loire. And down in Provence and the Languedoc along the coast, we have the Anne Marie. So it's 6 hotel barges in total. They feature a really intimate atmosphere. So whether you're taking these ships as a full ship charter, or if you're joining one of our scheduled departures, you really have an experience with a group of like-minded people, and you really get to know not just the people you're cruising with, but that region of France very closely during your 6 days on board. We do have bikes on board, which you can take off. There's canal paths that are perfect for cycling along for people who want to do just a few miles each day, or to take them out in the towns. A perfect size, again, for family groups, friend groups, escorted tours, and also groups that are kind of built up around certain themes. We've had, like as I mentioned before, cycling clubs, but we've also had photography clubs, art clubs, wineries who bring some of their customers along with us. You can we have great excursions already planned on these barges, but you can also kind of make it custom for yourself. And it can the ship can kind of move at your pace, and your day by day can be adapted to what you want to do. In the off season, 2 of these barges are also available for shorter cruises, both in Paris, doing just the city of Paris and the Canal Saint-Martin. And in Strasbourg, during their Christmas market, we have a 4-night cruise which operates just in the Alsace and in the greater Strasbourg area. Here's a couple of shots of the MS Raymond in Paris and out in the countryside. And I want to give you a peek at the inside of these. The cabins on these are what you'd expect for quite a small barge, but really nicely appointed, modern design, really bright types of cabins, and really efficient use of space as well. All of the canal barges have a nice sun deck out in front, which includes a hot tub. And then there's also a pop-up sun deck up on top. The lounge, which you can see the Raymond's lounge in the top left here, easily fits 22 people. It never really feels crowded, even if the ship is full. And the dining room as well seats all 22 people at once. So again, this is a really great experience for independent travelers, but also for groups of all sorts of any size underneath 22 people. And I want to talk a little bit about a few of these and go a little bit more of a deeper dive. Paris to Champagne, which is on board the Raymond this year, and will be on board the Deborah next in 2023. This is a cruise that embarks in downtown Paris. Our docking location for both our river ships on the Seine and our canal barge here is walking distance from the Eiffel Tower. We actually dock just about where the picture shows here, about one bend in the river down from the Eiffel Tower. We depart at night on the first evening, and we cruise past all the sites along the Seine. So if you're familiar with a bateau mouche style dinner cruise, we do that on board, but it's on a private ship, which is 22 passengers, and is the ship that you'll spend your whole week on board as well. From there, we head up and through the streets of Paris and depart Paris for the countryside. We'll visit the city of Meaux, which is famous for its brie cheese, which is known as the king of cheese in France. We'll visit Chateau Thierry, which is a famous French city with a large castle up at the top of the hill. And up there, we experience a falconry show, where guests can even take part. And eventually end up in Epernay, which is the home of the Champagne region. We'll visit a champagne house. We'll do tastings, and we'll get to see the vineyards as we're cruising along as well. So again, a really interesting itinerary that includes both a focus on Paris and the city, but then the countryside outside of it and the whole Champagne region as well. Dijon and Burgundy. As I mentioned, we have 2 ships here in Burgundy. Both of them do programs out of Dijon. Burgundy is a great destination for food, for wine, and really just for a different French experience from Paris. One of our programs starts in Besançon. It's a city in the Doubs Valley in the eastern end of France, quite close to the Swiss border, actually. It's a really cool city. with a big citadel on top of on one end of it. The city is completely encircled by the Doubs River, which makes it really really quite an interesting place to visit. From there, you cruise along the Doubs, and eventually you end up in Dole. It's a neat city that's actually pictured here above. It has canals kind of running up and through, and then a really picturesque kind of scene of houses going up along the hill as the city kind of spreads out. It's the birthplace of Louis Pasteur, which is just an interesting fact, and you do get to see his house on the walking tour there. The Grand Cru wine route is a full day devoted to visits to vineyards, visits to wineries, and doing some wine tasting of some of the finest wines here in Burgundy. And finally, ending up in Dijon, which is the capital of this region, and another really really fun city to be able to see, and a really different type of French city as well. Finally, in southern France, Provence, the Languedoc, and the southern coast, the Anne-Marie cruises along the coast on, again, a 6-night program. Beginning in Sète, where we meet the local fishermen and we taste the oysters that have been pulled out of the sea there. We do a day visiting the Camargue, and we go to see the French cowboys that kind of call this area home as they do a horse show. We visit the Roman city of Arles, which is where the cruise lets out as well. All of these canal cruises are all inclusive as you see them on our website. The itineraries include meals, drinks on board, which is again house wines, which are French wines that are paired with meals and things like that. They include all of the tours listed, and they include all the port charges and taxes as well. They retail for about 4,000 Canadian dollars, and that's pretty much throughout the whole season, and that's before any kinds of discounts or things like that. Our 2023 Canal Barges have just launched, and we do have a 15% discount on all 2023 departures. The next cruise I'm going to focus on is our cruise in the Loire Valley. This is on board the Loire Princess, which is one of our paddle wheel ships that I had mentioned earlier. It's one of our kind of custom builds. What we have is a 5-night cruise out of Nantes, France, on the Loire River, and we pair it with a night in Paris at the beginning, which gives you a 7-night program altogether, or sorry, a 7-day program altogether. So we do have an evening in Paris with a traditional French brasserie and a tour of the city of Paris on the first day. On day 2, we depart for Nantes and for the Loire River cruise, but along the way we're stopping at some of the chateaux of the Loire Valley to kind of walk in the footsteps of French royalty, to see some of the more famous chateaux that are in this region. We embark the ship in Nantes that evening. Nantes is the capital of this Atlantic region of France, and it's a really cosmopolitan city. It has a university. It has a really rich history of trade, and it's a city that I think is everybody should visit at some point. Along the Loire Valley, there's a Muscadet wine region as well, and on this cruise, we get a chance to taste some of those wines. This is a cruise on one of these modern paddle wheel cruises, and so it's something that's really, again, unique for CroisiEurope, something that the other French rivers just don't have. And again, this cruise is all inclusive, so same thing. We sell it with all of the meals included, drinks, excursions, Wi-Fi, basically everything that you could have on board. The starting price on this one is about 4,600 Canadian. That's with the extra night in Paris as well. We do sell a cruise only option on this, so you could meet the ship in Nantes and skip over that first day, and that would be a little bit less expensive than the full tour here. And I'm going to play a short video, which is going to show you a little bit about the Loire and give you a chance to see what the ship looks like and what the region looks like. So just to finish up on the Loire, that ship was built, I believe it was in 2017. Um, it's really kind of although it's a paddle wheel ship, it's really in line with a lot of what our newer fleet of river cruises are like. It's a 2-deck ship, only about 100 passengers. In fact, the Loire Princess holds only about 80. Um, Big picture windows for everybody on the lower deck. The Loire Princess has balconies on the upper deck, actual step-out balconies. Many of our ships have big French balcony windows, which slide open on that upper deck. And that's kind of the typical CroisiEurope river ship at that time. So from the Loire and from France and Europe, I'm going to go now into Africa and talk about the safari cruises that we offer. We have 2 ships now in Africa, the African Dream and the Zimbabwean Dream. And again, they were custom built within the last 5 years to do safari cruising on Lake Kariba in Zimbabwe. These programs are limited to 16 passengers at a time, so really a great size, both for traveling, both for travel in general, but also for traveling on a safari. You can do it in just about 2 or 3 jeeps. A great size for family groups, friend groups. Once again, it's a really private type of experience, whether you're doing it with friends and family or if you're joining one of our escorted tours. We have an 8-night program that we offer. It's 1 night in Johannesburg, and then 3 nights at one of our lodges, which is on the Zambezi River, on the border of Namibia and Botswana. 3 nights on board one of our ships in Zimbabwe, and then a night at Victoria Falls before coming home. So again, starting in Johannesburg, which kind of works as a meeting point for everybody who's coming internationally to meet for this program. And a few of the highlights here. We do meet up all together on day one in Johannesburg. We do a tour of the Soweto neighborhood and visit the Nelson Mandela House there. We have lunch together locally, and then a tour of Freedom Park as well. And then it's an overnight in Johannesburg, and we head out for the start of the safari. So from days 2 to 5, we're going to be at either our Cascade Lodge or our Casa Lodge. These are the two 16-passenger lodges that we have here on the river. They're actually on private islands in the river here. This is a really great region of Africa. It's the confluence of the Zambezi and the Chobe River. It's the meeting point between Namibia and Botswana. And it's really right at the border of the Chobe Park, which is one of the most famous safari parks in Africa. The lodges were all remodeled at the time that the ships were built, and so you have really well-appointed private cabins, private swimming pools along with each one. We spent 3 nights here, all inclusive again. So your meals with us, all of the tours, all of the drinks and things like that as well are included. We do one land safari at the Chobe Park. We also do water safaris off on the Zambezi River and the Chobe River as well. And we also go and visit some of the locals here who call this region home and kind of get to see their village and see what life is like there. From the lodge, we fly up to, we leave that region and we go up to Zimbabwe, and we land on Lake Kariba. Lake Kariba is the largest man-made lake in Africa. It covers a lot of the border between Zimbabwe and Zambia. It is a really tremendous destination, and nobody is doing a cruise like this in that area. The landscape there is just something really incredible. We have it's kind of a flooded plain, and so there's all these trees sticking out of the water. There's tons of animals along the banks of the lake. It's a great destination for birders. I think there's something like 300 plus species of birds that you can spot just on Lake Kariba alone. Hippos all over the lake, elephants on the shore. It's really a place where you can see nature like in its habitat. The ship has 16, as I mentioned, 8 cabins for 16 people. All of the cabins have large French balconies, with the exception of 2 cabins which have actual step-out balconies as well. So those are considered the suites. Again, we do water safaris right off the ship. We go out on smaller boats. We go on the Gashgash River. We go along the shore and look for animals. But we also do some land safaris. The Matusadona Park is in Zimbabwe. It's right there on the shore of the lake, and it's a great park to see animals really in their natural habitat. While the Chobe is one of the most popular parks, it is one that gets a lot of foot traffic, a lot of vehicle traffic as well. And so this park, I think, is a little bit more remote, a little bit different, and I think you're seeing animals in a different way here as well. Between the 2 parks that we visit, both Chobe and Matusadona, it's possible to see the big 5. I think the rhino is the most difficult of the 5 to see, but I know that most of the other are visible on this tour. I know that I've had guests who have seen leopards along the Chobe River when they're out on the game drive, and those are also pretty elusive. So again, great opportunities to see animals and lots to do here. And finally, we head up to Victoria Falls for the final night. We do a walk along the falls, learn about the destination. We do a boma dinner at a local restaurant, which is kind of like our farewell dinner. And then the final morning, we have an optional helicopter ride over the falls, which I think is something that you really can't miss. The views are just incredible. we've been doing this program now for, as I mentioned, 4 or 5 years. It's become one of our most popular and most sought after. I think it's a fantastic kind of bucket list trip. It covers a lot of ground, but also puts you in the right types of accommodations to kind of see what should be seen when you're in these destinations. At 8 nights, it starts at about 9,800 Canadian. Once again, all inclusive inside of Africa. We do have an optional add-on in Cape Town at the start of this, which a lot of people choose to take. I think it makes sense if you're traveling all the way to Africa to add some extra time on there. And then for private groups, again, if people are interested in taking the entire ship, entire lodge, doing this as a private experience, we can do all sorts of customs pre and posts. We can make some adjustments for you as well, and we've been seeing a lot of that as well. Both on the barges and in Africa, I think that they both kind of exemplify this smaller type of smaller group travel that's become really quite popular. And during these times as well, we've seen a big uptick in bookings for families, for friend groups who want to travel together, want to have some of these great experiences, but want to do it a little bit more intimately, and we really have that opportunity for them. So. That is all that I have for you. I am going to send it back over to Danny. And I want to say thanks again for having us today.
Thanks very much, Mike, for a great presentation on CroisiEurope. I've been very familiar with the large number of cruise ship companies that offer river cruise, and I'm very happy to have learned so much about your company, CroisiEurope, which offers some very viable alternatives. Yep. In particular, your information on barging has been very illuminating. I've studied it before, but kind of let it go to the side maybe 7 or 8 years ago to focus on river cruising. But I think that river barging is the way to go in certain situations. So thank you for all of that information. Yeah. The unique itineraries that Croisi offers makes it very attractive. I will for sure be learning more about what your company has to offer. You've really opened my eyes. Now I have a bunch of questions here, not a bunch, but a few questions, and sure. I was jotting them down as I was listening to your presentation, and sometimes they actually got answered as I was listening. So that was great. The idea that it's an all-inclusive. Most of your river cruises are all-inclusive experiences. Is wonderful. I was asking myself again before this presentation, I wonder what this would cost, and do we have to add excursions to this, and what would those cost, and so on and so forth. So it's great to know that for many of them they're all-inclusive. Yep. I can't imagine that a boat on the Elbe would be 1 meter draft. I mean, this is one of the big concerns that I, as a travel agent, with my clients have is water levels, and what do they do to trips if the water is too low or too high. If you have a draft of 1 meter, that certainly alleviates that problem to a large extent. And just butt in. I'm just going to be making comments here, but if you have something you want to say, just feel free to butt in.
Absolutely. I mean, the Elbe cruise, the 2 ships on the Elbe, and then the cruise on the Loire as well, feature that kind of really shallow draft. And we went to a separate shipyard to kind of focus on building ships that would allow us to navigate those rivers. The Elbe has had river cruises on it for years. A few different companies do operate there, but it's notoriously been unpredictable. And when we decided to build these ships, we really had the Elbe in mind first, and then we kind of said, where else can we go? And the Loire was an option as well. And so I think that I think that it's something that CroisiEurope really likes to kind of bend the idea of what is a river ship. Some people would look at some rivers and say, a river ship couldn't fit there. That's, they're too deep, they're too long, they're too wide. But we really like to kind of decide where we want to go and then build a ship to accommodate that.
That's great. It makes you unique too. I mean, I've been in this business for a long time now, and it's neat to see when river cruise companies adapt themselves to the conditions. really enjoyed your information on the African dream, the different safaris, and we've been to Zambia, Zimbabwe, South Africa, and Botswana, and have done some safaris there. And I've sold clients that too. It is a bucket list destination, a bucket list trip. But for somebody that's been thinking about doing this, you've provided a couple of excellent alternatives there. Just curious to know, in those cruises that you mentioned, I know that when we went there, we were responsible for getting our own visas. Do you help with that, or is that something that the client and travel agent are responsible for?
You know, I don't know off the top of my head the visa requirements for Canadian citizens there. I know, but I think that it's actually if it's the same as for U.S. citizens, it's really quite simple, and we do help. You do not have to get the visa ahead of time for Namibia or Botswana. They're paid on the spot. We do not include it in the cost, but we do include all of the instructions of what you're going to need, and essentially, it's organized by the lodge director who's accompanying you on the trip. So we do make it very easy for everybody. We share all of the information ahead of time, and it's just a matter of crossing the border.
That's good to know. Yeah. Simple is best.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Especially these days.
Yeah. Vic Falls, Cape Town. Vic Falls really stood out for us. We were in that area in the dry season, so apparently the volume of water that was going over the falls wasn't as magnificent as it would have been during the wet season, but very impressive excursion there. Cape Town, we spent a couple of days there, and certainly Table Mountain, as well as Cape Town itself is a lovely place to visit. So to add that as an add-on is well worthwhile. Mm-hmm. Coastal Spain and the river cruise and ocean, I was not aware of that. That's wonderful, where you do a river cruise and then you're out on the ocean as well. So yeah, not too many companies do that.
It's something really, really, again, unique for us. And it was one of our earlier cruises when that ship has been in operation at least since the early 2000s. I think it's a great destination. I mean, Sevilla is a beautiful city. Again, Spanish food is fantastic. I think that there's so much history down there. And you're right. The cruise in the Gulf of Cadiz is something that's really kind of unique for us. And again, it's a special ship that has to do that. And we do have that ship. We do go on the Guadiana River a bit as well, and that's kind of on the border of Spain and Portugal down there in the south. And so it's kind of a multifaceted type of cruise.
Okay, well, I mean, really looks worthwhile exploring for sure. Mm-hmm. Interested in the Po River in Venice. We talked about that a little bit before the presentation. Certainly, we did that with another cruise company and really enjoyed ourselves. As I mentioned to you, we bought a $240 half bottle of wine, mm-hmm. which we're going to use towards our 50th anniversary next year. So something very special, or maybe really expensive vinegar. I don't know. We'll find out, I guess. Wine-themed cruises, we've been on a couple in southern France and the Douro. Grew to appreciate port wine as a result of our Douro cruise. So that was very enjoyable. And I'm sure you folks do that as well. Hiking on the Douro, one of the things, when I think back to the Douro, I think about a river that just seems to have steep banks on both sides for the entire duration. So yeah, great hiking for sure.
Yeah, if you've ever visited the city of Porto, it's a day of hiking, just walking through the streets there. It's all hills up and down. That's a great destination.
Yeah, I totally agree. I never forget the big iron bridge that's there. That's the same fellow, I think, that did the Eiffel Tower, wasn't it? Or
I believe it is. Yeah, I think it's his design as well.
Yeah, but they have this magnificent wisteria bush on the other side, which cascades down about 200 meters. It's just absolutely amazing. What else? Family cruising. That's something that took me by surprise. Almost every river cruise that I'm aware of is really designed for adults, and I'm just curious to know a little bit more about what you do for families and children.
Yeah, absolutely. So a few years ago, we introduced, and this is not just on our family cruises, but really across the board. We talked about that we're all inclusive, and that includes the excursions. But part of it is that we have two different excursions in most ports. So we'll always have a classic excursion, which is going to be the city tour or the museum visit or like the must-see sites. But we also have discovery excursions, and those usually are for people who are a little bit more, I'm not going to say just younger people, but people who are a little more adventurous, and maybe people who have already been into the city and want to do something a little bit more unique. And so very often those tours will be renting a bike and cycling, doing kind of like an urban hike or even a hike up into the countryside. In Strasbourg, which is again, that's where our company is based, and it's a great city right on the Rhine River. We do a climb to the top of the cathedral. Which has a great bird's eye view over the whole city and even the Rhine River, and you can see it from France into Germany. And so those excursions I think are really great for kids across the cruises.
Okay.
Our family club programs tend to be in Southern Europe and in the summer. So Italy, Portugal, Spain as well. You can find for the family cruises, and children 16 and under travel for free on these with their parents. So it's essentially like a buy one get one if you're taking two cabins for you and your kids. They offer a few excursions that are just like that for younger children, or sometimes specific museum visits that are more geared towards kids. But also they just draw more families in general, and so the atmosphere on board, as you know, since you've been on European river cruises before, is really dictated by the people on board as much as it is the destination or the crew or anything. And so these tend to be a bit livelier, a bit more kid friendly, just by the sake of drawing more families on them.
Oh, that's great. Again, I'd like to explore that a little bit more because in the past it's always been offering this river cruise option to mature adults.
Yes.
So to speak. So, anyway, so Mike, thank you very, very much for this, and Laura for working in the background on this. It's been very entertaining and definitely educational for me. I certainly want to pursue a little further what your company offers so that I can be more knowledgeable for my clients on this. So I will be talking with you in future.
Excellent.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks, Danny.
You're very welcome, Danny. Thank you.
Okay, Laura.
Bye now.
All right. The next scheduled presentation will be on February the 8th at 6:30 p.m. when Herta Group and Cruise Line will be offering an in-depth look at their expedition cruise ships. One of the first companies to offer expedition cruises to the Arctic and Antarctic. We will have a look at one of these specially designed ships and also look at several others. So thanks again, Mike and Laura, for your presentation this evening on CroisiEurope.
Thanks, Danny. Take care.